Welcome to the Leighann McCoy podcast. This is a place where we dive deep into the power of prayer, spiritual warfare, and what it really looks like to walk with Jesus when life gets complicated. Today will be a little different. You're going to hear about my mom's journey, background, and passion for summer camps. I remember hearing stories of my first summer as a baby being at Camp Linden in Linden, Tennessee with my grandmother while my mother ran GA camp. I also remember going to GA camp when I was old enough, and then again going back to Camp Linden for cross camp when my mom decided TSC should host their own camp. I always had a blast being a camper and then enjoyed being a counselor the older I got. I am really excited for my mom's new plans this summer. You will not want to miss this, especially as a fellow mom that may want to have their daughters experience something unique just for them that God has laid on my mom's heart.
Hello, my friends. I love summer. I love the shift in our schedules. I love that even if you don't have children that are going to school, you still feel like you've got a little more flexibility, in your day to day. Of course, I'm also the kind of person who's more than ready for school to get back in session at the end of August or the middle of August or the 1st of August and now the end of July. Summer seems, what in the world happened? How did summer just continue to get shorter and shorter? Anyway, even though it's not like it used to be, I think when I was in school, summer kind of started at Memorial Day weekend and it ended at Labor Day weekend. Like those were the bookends for summer. And for the life of me, I don't know who was the they that decided that we had to shorten summer. It doesn't get to be that long anymore. I don't know. But all of that aside, I still love summer. I love chasing fireflies. I love cooking s'mores. I love being outside with my toes in the ground. I love getting my fingers in the dirt. I love the water. And I don't love the water in the winter because the water is cold in the winter. But in the summer, I love the water. I love the water in the ocean. I love the water in the creeks. I love the water in the rivers and the swimming pools. You have to love that water where you can see all the way to the bottom and there's nothing else swimming in there with you but other little people. I've loved swimming. I've loved water skiing. I've loved tubing and floating and wading and body surfing, all the things that you can do in the water in the summer. I also love watermelon and I love peaches and I love blackberries and all blueberries and all the other things that grow and produce in the summer. I love zucchini squash. I love zucchini squash fried. I love it cooked in a loaf. I love it sauteed. I even love it with chocolate chips and muffins. I love zucchini squash. I love okra. I love all the things that we grow in the garden, except I don't love mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are the only thing I don't love. I love bush beans. I love pole beans. I love lima beans, corn, and tomatoes. I love peas and carrots. I love, you ready for this? Flip-flops. I love flip-flops. Flip-flops, blah, blah. Flip-flops are my favorite shoes. You know what I saw in India when I was on a mission trip one day? I saw women walking around in flip-flops with socks that were specifically made to be flip-flop socks. Now, if we brought anything back, I think it would be flip-flop socks. That might be, all through the years, I've thought maybe I should venture into selling other things besides books when I go out to speak. Maybe I could add flip-flop socks. Maybe we could have God's Got This flip-flop socks. Wouldn't that be fun? Then I could love flip-flops in the winter. But part of the reason I love summer is because I love flip-flops. But do you know what I've always loved most about summer? Camp. Now, when I was growing up, I loved camping with my family. But as I grew up, my parents always sent us to camp, to summer camp. I'm not talking about the long 6 weeks of camp that really rich people send their kids to. I worked at a camp like that, and I loved that too. But I loved going to camp. And it was at camp when I was 11 years old that Jesus met me face to face. Jesus chose the camp setting to draw me into a personal relationship with him. Is that not the coolest thing ever? In fact, that might have been the same summer when I hardly had an afternoon to get my clothes washed from one camp to go to the next one. I remember flying home from a camp. I don't remember which camp it was, but it was my parents' friend who flew me in his own private plane home from the camp. And you know what I remember about that flight home? I remember that we landed at Charlie Brown Airport. Charlie Brown Airport is still in existence today. It's on the northwest side of Atlanta, which puts it on the southeast side of my home. And I flew right into Charlie Brown Airport just so that I can have a quick turnaround and go to the next camp. That's how much I loved camping when I was a camper, when I was a kid. And if my memory serves me well, it was at a camp in the North Georgia mountains, Camp Pinnacle, where I gave my life to the Lord. I told you that already, but the sweetest thing, I remember we were celebrating Christmas in July that week. It was GA camp. And for those that have been grown up Southern Baptists, you remember the missions organizations that we had for the boys and the girls on Wednesday nights. In fact, I have really been pondering how important those were. We were doing girls' ministry and boys' ministry even before men were doing men's ministry and women were doing women's ministry when we had GAs and RAs. GAs were for Girls in Action, and RAs they called the boys Royal Ambassadors. And our whole point of existence was to learn about and to pray for missionaries. And at this camp, when I was a little girl, we were celebrating Christmas in July. And as a part of that celebration, I remember we hung our tube socks. Little girls wore long white socks back then, not the little footy socks we have now, but socks that came up your leg. We called them tube socks. All of us had a pair. And when we came to camp, you probably were supposed to pack 2 pair, for hiking in the woods or something. When we came to camp, because we were celebrating Christmas in July, we had secret angels in our cabin, and we had all chosen a child's name. And we hung our tube socks on the corner of our bunk bed. And throughout the week, you would find little trinkets or little happies that we would put in each other's tube socks. You might give somebody something you bought at the snack bar, or you might give them a little leather bracelet that you hammered their name on at the craft shack. But all week long, we put little gifts in the tube socks, and we celebrated Christmas. And it was on the night that was supposed to be like Christmas Eve. It was probably the night before camp was over, that a man, I think it was the missionary that was at the camp, that was telling us about, his adventures on the mission field. He sang the Christmas carol, "O Holy Night." And while he was singing that song, Jesus spoke to my heart. And it was a powerful personal encounter with the Lord God Almighty in the heart of an 11-year-old camper at GA camp. And it made all the difference in my whole entire life. From that point forward, I knew that I was never alone. I knew that I was completely loved, completely forgiven, and that no matter what happens here on earth, I would go to heaven when I die. I've known that God is with me in the good and in the bad and in the hard and in the easy. I've known that He's got a plan for my life, and His plan is always better than mine. I'm still growing to understand how to allow Him to be even bigger and more real on the platform of my life. But from that day forward, He's never left me, forsaken me, um, done me wrong. Nothing, ever. At camp, 11 years old, in the summer, July, I believe 1975. Don't do the math. Anyway, I remember camp as a camper. And then I grew up through high school and began to be a counselor at camps. I went to day camps at our very underdeveloped, we called it the property at Allatoona Lake, where my church had some property that they were developing into a camp. I don't even know if that church still has that property and if they made it into a camp or retreat center, but it was a very cool thing when I was growing up. And we swam in a lake that didn't even have a beach. I mean, like, we jumped off the corners and swam between the roots of the trees, kind of swimming. It was icky. And you know what? That camp, when I worked at it in high school, did not even have a bathroom. We pottied in an outhouse. Woo! That's a memory that popped back into my head. But I went to camps all the way growing up. When I was in college, I worked at Skyline Ranch in Mentone, Alabama. That's when I worked as a counselor all summer long for little girls whose families might send them for 2, 4 or even 6 weeks of camp. Some of those girls might stay with us all summer. It was their summer experience was to go to camp, and it had its own little camp culture, you know. We ate in the dining room all together. We slept in a cabin with screens, not windows, not real windows, but screens. And you never needed air conditioning because most camps were in the mountains. And little girls and interacting with them, getting to be friends with the counselors from all over, the nation. When I went off to seminary, I led a day camp for the downtown YMCA in Fort Worth, Texas. And at that camp was totally different experience. In that camp, we hosted it in the inner city parks. The director, assistant director, and I would go out early in the morning and clear the park out from the drug paraphernalia and all the other remnants of whatever activities went on in that park after dark. And then in the day, we would bus in 60, 80, 100 inner city kids where we had camp for them all summer long. My job by then was not a counselor. I was the one who hired the director and the assistant director, hosted the training, staffed the camp, made sure that everything was on the up and up, took care of getting the money for the camp, managing the budget for the camp, that kind of thing. It was a lot of a job for a 22-year-old seminary student. When we graduated from seminary, Tom and I moved to Thompson Station, Tennessee to join the tiny little group of people who wanted to become a church. And when we got here, I landed about a year or so after we moved here. I landed a job with the Tennessee Baptist Convention. It's called the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board now. And guess how God maneuvered my path where camps are concerned. Now, as a 25-year-old seminary graduate and a pastor's wife living in Middle Tennessee, I had the job of staffing and directing and leading the GA camps for the state of Tennessee. So the very camp where Jesus met me personally when I was 11 years old in the state of Georgia, I was now being able to lead in the state of Tennessee. That's a story only God could write. And so in that job, I got to travel during the winter months to all of our colleges and universities across our great state of Tennessee and speak at the BSU. They're called Baptist Campus Ministries now, BCM, but back then it was Baptist Student Union. And I would speak at their weekly meeting, and then I would set up interviews with any of the college girls that might be interested in getting a summer job working at our camps, because we were able to employ them for 9-10 weeks every summer. And I would recruit our camp staff, about 40 or so people. And then I would host training. Of course, I would do an interview weekend. I remember that being a whole lot of fun in Brentwood. They would come into our offices there in Maryland Farms, and I would host interviews for these students, and then we would make our selection as to who would be on camp staff, and then we'd bring them in a week early at Camp Linden, and we would host training all week and get the whole Linden campground ready to receive 220 girls in the grades between 4th and 7th grades, and then to have weekends. We actually had some mini camps and weekends for teenage girls as well. And we would begin in June, spend the whole month of June at Camp Linden in Linden, Tennessee. Then we would pack all of our camp up after having spent 4 or 5 weeks there, and we would travel to Camp Carson in East Tennessee over in Newport in the Smoky Mountains. And we would have camps then the 4 weeks of July there, and end with a cleanup week and a celebration week of what the Lord had done that summer. And the very first summer that I was here and led that camp, I actually lived at camp all summer long, even though Tom and I were newly married. Like, we'd only been married 2 years, and he was in Thompson Station working hard to work with the church, and I was off at camp running these camps for all these little girls coming and going, and he and I would meet each other. He'd come to camp, I'd pop home every once in a while, and Whew, I have great, great memories of that and really great memories of the girls that I got to meet during that season of my life. A couple of years later, I had a couple of children and decided that wasn't the best life for me as a mom. I felt torn in too many different directions, and I had to give up my job there at the Tennessee Baptist Convention, at least my full-time job. I was able to do a whole lot of work with them after that, but no more with camp. So fast forward another 5 or 6, 7, 8 years, I started camp at Thompson Station Church. By then, our church was established enough for us to begin camp for children. And so we took our first group of campers to cross camp. I don't know what the year was. Some of the people who work at the church might know better than me, but I do remember how many people we took. We took 26 adults and children to cross camp that summer, that very first summer. And we stayed in the little bitty cabins that are at Camp Linden because I was familiar with that camp facility. I knew the people. I had worked there a lot of years and, of course, loved the work of the state convention. And anyway, we took our children to camp that year. We stayed in those little cabins that are still there, remarkably enough. As you go into the camp facility, they sit on the right. Back in that day, we called them Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and No Mo. Those were the names we had given to them. I think their official names were bird names, like Robin, Blue Jay, that kind of thing. Anyway, we stayed our whole camp. The whole cross camp at Thompson Station Church stayed in those little cabins for our camp that year, that week, and had a blast. That began our camp season that continues on today. This summer, there'll be probably 200 children and teenagers and adults that'll be at cross camp with the children in that really, really great camp ministry and camp program. I have had a rich, rich experience with camps throughout the years. When I'm not doing camps, I've spent much of my life going to women's conferences and retreats, which is kind of our adult version of camp. And so that has been the package that the Lord has allowed me to serve him in, and the part of my life that has meant so much to me. I can't even put it into words, how much doing camp ministry has meant to me. So all of that to say that the reason that I'm podcasting about this today is simply because it's the end of April, the beginning of May. I'm no longer at Thompson Station Church. I'm many, many years removed from spending my whole summer at Camp Linden and Camp Carson. And thank goodness I'm not cleaning drug paraphernalia out of city parks anymore, even though I wouldn't be opposed to that. Just talking about some of this sort of bubbles in my spirit some interest. But what I do have now is a backyard that is conducive to an amazingly unique boutique camp experience. You know what else I have? I have a granddaughter who's exactly the age I was when camp first began to be so important to me, and she too loves camp. She's spent several years at Cross Camp with the church, and then she's also spent last summer, she was able to get introduced to Deer Run camps, which are a great local camp here. This year, she's even going to get to go to a whole week residential camp at Deer Run, in addition to her week at Cross Camp at Thompson Station Church. But in between, there's a couple of weeks this summer that she and I both have open, and I have decided to follow the Lord's leadership in creating, I'm going to call it a boutique camp in my backyard. Ooh, maybe I could call it a backyard boutique day camp for girls who've completed grades 4 through 7. Let me talk to you about this camp. And I know some of y'all might not be interested in this at all, but I did decide to take the podcast and talk about the camp. One, because I want anybody interested in sending their daughter to my camp this summer to know what it is that's in my heart, what I am seeing and what I vision what the Lord's vision is for this camp for these girls. And I wanted to give y'all a little backstory as to why at 62 years old, I would still be interested in doing something like that. So let me just unpack it very slowly and indulge me, because this is something I'm real excited about. And I'm following the Lord on this. It's an adventure. It's like a new adventure. So, um, Imago Dei camp. Imago Dei simply means to be made in the image of God. It's the Latin word for image of God. And you know that God made us in his image, but so much has happened through generations and generations, and always our culture is oppositional to what God's purpose is for our lives, and especially now. And this is my way to fight back. I want young girls and young women, and I'll tell you how I've involved them in this too, but I want young girls to know that how beautiful they are, how special they are, how unique they are, and how purposeful they are. And so during these 3 days of camp, and our camp is only 3 days, and I'll tell you why. Because Monday through Friday in our day and time is a big commitment. It's a big commitment for me. This camp's happening in my own backyard. I'm also thinking a lot of families do a lot of traveling. A lot of girls are involved in sports. I know that our daughters and son were very much involved in sports when they were growing up. And because of that, the weekends sometimes get dedicated to that. And but I thought about it and I thought, what are the laziest, boringest, the most boring, and the days of the week where if mamas are trying to do any work outside the home, that they're really trying to get their work done. Well, that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that is the same for me. Like, those are my best days to be able to dedicate a whole day to this kind of an adventure. So the Lord just gave me the idea to have my camp only Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's just 3 days. That impacts the cost of the camp. It's about half the price of what a week at Deer Run's day camp would be. And so we are packing it into 3 days instead of 5. Imago Dei, I told you why. I want girls to understand that they're made in the image of God. It's for girls in grades 4 through 7. Why would that be? Well, you just heard some of my background. That has been the ages of camp that I've worked with the most in the past. And it's also the age of a person's life when they're beginning to understand abstract thoughts. They're beginning to have the ability just developmentally to get a handle on who God is and what he wants to do in their lives. And that, of course, is what I know that God is going to allow this camp to be, is that what I see it is when these children arrive in my backyard, they're entering into a place where they are going to be able to be up close and personal with the Lord God Almighty. We're going to be walking on holy ground. That's kind of funny to think of my backyard as holy ground, but it'll still have its share of stickers and dirt and worms and things, but we will be in an atmosphere where God's going to do some powerful things in their lives. And that, of course, is my prayer. Just as he's done in my life, I'm taking what I have, and what I have now is not a church, not a big camp, not a big budget, not a state convention that's going to foot the bill, or a YMCA. What I have now is my own backyard, and I want to give it to the glory of God for this camp. So, boutique, because it is my backyard. And there's only room for so many. And by boutique, I mean 20 girls or less. And this is going to be so good, because in so many settings, especially camp settings, and they're marvelous and great. I mean, nobody does camp like Thompson Station Church does camp at Cross Camp. And every camp has the opportunity for children to really get to know the campers that they share a cabin with. And that excitement of the big is great and good and exciting. But the boutique is also going to be really, really special, because every girl will actually be very much known. She will matter. Her voice will be heard. And we're going to have 3 adults, myself, my daughter and my good friend Tara Winters. Michael, my oldest daughter, and Tara and I, all three, will be leading the camp as the adults. Tara, of course, has her two little girls that'll be there. Michael has her daughter, River, that will be in this age group. And I'm hoping to talk her older daughter, Misty, into being like my official camp photographer or maybe my personal assistant that week so that I can get her to hang out too. She's right kind of in between the age of a camper and what I would like to have for a teenage counselor. So it's going to be three of us, and then I'm going to be hiring three girls, and I want them to be either juniors or seniors in high school or freshmen in college who would like to come and participate with us. This will be a paid position. And I want that because it's so important for little girls to get to connect with bigger girls. And they all kind of are growing up in the same sort of culture, which is far different than the one I grew up in, and even the one that these girls' moms have grown up in. So we'll have also three young girls. And then my sweet friend, Haley Ring, who is absolutely precious. She's a young woman, 23 years old, who has a call on her life and a real passion for young girls and for ministry. And I've invited her to write the Bible study material for our camp, and she's working on it even now. I'm going to get her to make us a video so y'all can see who she is. You know what? I may even bring her on the podcast just to interview her so that some of you can just hear her heart and hear how sweet and special she is. So anyway, she's writing the Bible study content for us. And so that's what we have planned. So there'll only be allowed 20, maybe 22. We'll see how registration goes. Girls, each week of the camp. The camp is only being offered 3 times. It's a very exclusive opportunity for these girls. And you say, well, how did you choose those weeks? Well, that's just the weeks that I have available. So that's why we did it that way. And if it's a great big success, who knows? We might add another week or so. But we want it to be fun for everybody, for me and everybody else. Now, let me tell you about my backyard. I am making some social media posts from my backyard so you can get a little peek at it. But I live on a good sized lot, and I have a beautiful backyard. And a couple of years ago, Tom and I invested some family money into the building of a great back porch that has a kitchen and a huge sitting area, a stone fireplace, and a great big patio. Plenty of room. I could have a camp of 50 if I wanted to in my backyard and never even notice. I have a huge backyard in-ground pool. Many of you who listen to me might have had teenagers that grew up with my children and spent time in my backyard pool because it felt like the whole world was growing up there. And then I also have a pretty cool little garden thing going on this year, which I'm super proud of because it's my first year to feel good about doing my garden by myself. Last year, I did my garden by myself. My daughter, Michael, is my gardener. And when she lived with me, we always had a beautiful garden. And we all three, like Tom and she and I, all worked on the garden together. Well, last year, she left me. She had the audacity to move out and get married and take her garden with her, which really bothered me greatly. So Tom and Kaylee and I planted the garden, but we had a whole lot going on last summer, and the natural growth kind of overwhelmed us, and my garden turned into a jungle. And I just hollered abort come about July. But this year, I have planted a boutique garden. I've taken my great big garden space and I've divided it into 7 little beds, like 7 little garden beds. And so far we're doing really good. Of course, it's not even May yet. So things are just barely popping out of the ground, but it looks really, really good. I'm real excited about the garden because the older I get, the more I value how I grew up. And maybe all old people are like this, but you know, When I was a child, I went to my grandparents' houses in the summer, and their lives really orbited around their gardening and taking care of the things that they were getting out of the garden. I remember my grandma and my papa getting up early, early in the morning, and by the time I was waking up, they were either not in the house because they were out picking beans or something, or they were just beginning to come back into the house because they'd go work in the morning before it got so hot. And then I remember spending the afternoons helping her, well, the evenings we'd be shelling beans or stringing beans or shelling peas, as we were watching uh The Price is Right in the afternoon on TV. Or what was it? Truth or Consequences, I think was one of the things we watched. Anyway, and then I remember the pressure cooker where she would be canning the things that we were shelling and putting it up. They'd always talk about how many quarts they had put up, in canning or freezing. And that was just what my grandparents did in the summer. I didn't appreciate it when I was young, but I do now. I think it's so cool. And I think there's so much value in doing those things that's far more than just the food in the winter. The value is, there is emotional value in this. There's social value in this. There's connection through the generations in this, all these things. So a part of our boutique Imago Dei camp is going to be gardening and also canning or freeze. No, we're not going to freeze because how do they freeze something and take it home? But we're going to can and make things in the kitchen. And so some of our Michael is going to be, even though she's the gardener, she's also the best person in the kitchen. I'm just learning the kitchen things. I'm a late bloomer where the kitchen is concerned, but I do have a big, beautiful kitchen. And on social media, I'll give you some pictures of my kitchen as time goes along so you can see what it looks like. My friends, I'm just using the assets that the Lord has given me and given them back to Him to pour into the hearts and the lives of young girls this summer. So anyway, she's going to be in the kitchen, and the girls, when they get to have their turn in the kitchen, they're going to be canning with Michael. They might make herb butter where they use the herbs from the garden and make actual homemade butter. We don't have a cow, so it's not going to come straight from the cow, but we'll make it after we get the milk from another source or the cream. I think that's what you make butter out of, cream. I did make butter one time in Vacation Bible School with baby food jars and probably whipping cream and salt. And I remember me and those children shaking those baby food jars until it became butter. So I am a skilled butter maker, but Michael's going to be the one. If they make butter, she's going to make it. I'm actually drying chive blooms, and they're beautiful, little purple chives. I'm drying those right now. We might use those for the butter making. Anyway, I also have this gargantuan blackberry bush. I'm talking, it is like a monster blackberry bush. Tom and I were saying the other day, we could probably open up the McCoy blackberry picking farm. And literally, y'all could come from all over and pick blackberries in our backyard. So I figure those blackberries are going to be getting ripe right about the time that we're doing camp. And Michael said that they might then make blackberry jam in the kitchen, and all the girls will take home a little can of jam. And then what was one of her other ideas? Oh, refrigerator pickles. This girl pickled radishes last week. She had her radishes came in because that's an early season garden plant, and she pickled them. She pickles everything, and she's pickled jalapenos. She's pickled, this is radishes. She's taken that zucchini and made relish out of it and pickles. She's pickled watermelon rinds before. So anyway, the girls might make pickles in the kitchen this summer, and that'll be one of the rotations. So listen to the 3 rotations they get to take. One is the kitchen, where they're going to get to do that. Another is the garden. Now, in the garden, we're going to get our hands in the dirt. They're going to do some of the weeding and then some harvesting. Whatever's harvesting, we will harvest, and we'll do something with it. And then every one of the girls who do the garden project is going to have a sweet little garden plant to bring home with them as well. So excited, really, really excited about the gardening because I'm in charge of the gardening group. And so we're going to learn all kinds of things about Jesus when we're canning and when we're gardening, and then when we're crafting. And y'all know what I think we're going to do for our craft? We're going to paint rocks because I love painted rocks. I don't know what it is about it. I think it has to do with David and Goliath and those 5 smooth stones. I just can't get over how the Lord has given us everything we need to take our Goliaths down. And so anyway, we're going to paint rocks. And my friend Tara is going to be the person who leads the craft project of painting rocks. And these rocks are going to be like worthy of either hiding somewhere or laying someplace where it will encourage somebody, or keeping as a personal treasure forever so that they can remember their week at my boutique Imago Dei camp. Or it might be something they give away. I don't know. But anyway, every child will have that. Another cool thing we're going to do at camp. So those are like the summer grandma kind of things that we're going to do at my house. And then besides that, when the girls arrive every morning at camp, they're going to journal. I'm going to teach them how to journal. My whole spiritual life has had journaling at the very center of it. And I know not every person is a journaler, and some girls might not even love to write, but everybody can do something on a page of paper, whether they paint a picture or doodle or scribble or just color. It doesn't matter. But for those who do love to write, it's going to be a great, well, no matter how they decide to do something on paper, it's just, I'm going to teach them how to allow what's on the inside to come out into a very personal space that's only theirs. And so on the first day of our 3 days, they will make their journals and decorate their notebooks. And then throughout the day, they'll be recording things inside of their journals, the notes from the teaching, the thoughts from the small groups. We're going to have an opportunity for the girls to write questions on an index card and put it in a box. And we don't want their names on the questions. They can ask us anything. And there'll be a time after lunch where we pull that box out and we're going to answer some of those questions or discuss the things that they write their questions about. And they can jot down their thoughts in their journal where that is. And so by the end of the 3 days, these girls are going to have the good start on a tool that they can take with them and use in their ongoing walk with the Lord. And I'm especially going to teach them how to spend 10 or 15 minutes a day in the Word with Jesus, having that special journaling time on a daily basis. And I'm telling you, if they grow up doing this, it's gonna change their whole life. I mean, it's gonna be, if you're the kind of person that's had a rich, quiet time experience and you know Jesus in that dynamic personal relationship, like what I'm talking about, you know what a difference this makes in the lives of these girls. So anyway, they're going to journal. And we're going to have opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies. We're going to be a little bit ceremonial because we want the girls to set their mind for the day and set their heart for the day and enjoy, a secret handshake or something. I don't know exactly what it'll be, but it's going to be something girly and something fun. And then at the end of the day, we want to stand for a few minutes and reflect on what God has done, because that's what I'm so excited about. God's got the girls in mind. He's got the plan in mind, and he's got what's going to happen in mind. He's got how this is going to impact their lives when they're 62 years old in mind, just like me. And all I'm doing is I'm along for the ride just to see what all God's got in mind. So anyway, we're going to do that. We're going to have Bible study time. I shared with you about my friend Haley, who's going to teach them. She's going to teach via video. She's a very busy young woman this summer, and I'm hoping she'll be able to come by at least one day each week and say hi to the girls. I don't know, because I don't know how her schedule and mine will line up. We'll figure it out. Anyway, that's going to be really sweet. And we'll do our rotations. We'll eat lunch together. They'll bring their own lunch, but we will give them a snack in the morning, another snack in the afternoon. One day, the afternoon, and I wanted to tell you about the afternoon. So besides just some time for us to sit and talk about how the Bible study impacts our real life, we're going to do some role play with that and some situation discussions about specific situations that come up in our own lives. and how what we've studied in the Bible impacts that. And then answer our anonymous questions. And then we'll kind of transition into just some free play time, just free time where the girls get to do what they want to do. They can swim. They can play board games. We're going to have all kinds of fun, just old-fashioned board games that they can circle up and play. They can work on another craft. We'll have another craft project for them, something kind of fun. If painting rocks isn't their cup of tea, or if they want to paint another rock, they can do that. And so the afternoons, then on one afternoon, one of those 3 afternoons, Michael will take whoever's interested back to the kitchen, and they're going to make something really yummy for our afternoon snack. So we'll be in the afternoon, they'll have a snack that we'll provide. In the morning, they'll have a snack that we'll provide. Then they'll bring their own lunch. We're going to provide water bottles and T-shirts because you got to have water bottles and T-shirts at camp. And then we'll have all that free time in the afternoon. We'll have our closing ceremonies, and then the mom and dads will come pick them up about 4 o'clock. If people need a little aftercare because they're using this for kind of their childcare on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we can work that out. Both the before care and the aftercare. It's flexible and it's personalized because it's a boutique. It's what did I tell you? My backyard boutique day camp. Anyway, can you tell I'm excited? This is going to be very special. I pray it becomes as monumental in the lives of these girls as camp was in my life when I was a girl. And I pray if it's in God's heart to do so, that it might grow into something as large as Cross Camp has grown into through the years. So, all the good camp things will happen here. The girls are going to make new friends. They're going to learn new things. They're going to grow. They're going to meet Jesus face to face. Sure, they're going to dig in the dirt, paint a rock, swim, make friendship bracelets, and they're going to know that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that they are loved from the tips of their noses to the tips of their toeses. And we might even paint some toeses. I don't know. And I think this is going to be a very sweet and a very, very special time together. So with all of that said, I know this wasn't the podcast you might have thought it would be, but girlfriends, and guys, if you're listening, we have taken a lot of heavy stuff over the last several weeks talking about forgiveness. And I just decided this week I want to take a break from that and talk about something fun. So let the summer fun begin. And if you want to know more about Imago Dei Camp and where you can sign up, Michael will add that to the show notes. And so you definitely want to get on top of it. I'm making this recording. Let's see, it's probably going to go out this week. And so we actually do have an early bird incentive for you to get a discounted rate on the day camp. And that ends on May 15. So if you're interested in signing up to get the early bird discount, and it doesn't matter which week you want to come to camp, you want to do that before May 15. After that, the price will go to the regular price. And it'll stay that way throughout the summer. So the sign up and registration will close as soon as the camp is full. And like I said before, full is going to be 20 girls. We might allow 1 or 2 more than that if, push comes to shove and you're really begging me. But we want to purposefully keep it small. Also, if you've got a daughter or a granddaughter that fits in that age group of a junior, senior in high school or a freshman in college who might be interested in working. Now, this isn't a summer job because it's only 3 weeks, 3 days. So it's a 9-day job, plus maybe a day for training. And so, but if it's something she might be interested in doing, what it will do is help build her resume for her community service kind of work. And she will learn because I'm going to pour into these young girls what's been poured into me, and can then become a great reference for her wherever else she decides to go. So I do have that to offer, and I would encourage you, if you've got daughters, then I want you to reach out to us and let us know so that we can set up an interview with her. So anyway, that is my podcast for this week. I want to invite every one of you to send your daughters, to send your granddaughters, to send whomever you know, get the word out about Imago Dei Camp, and we're going to have us some fun. All right. Thanks for listening.
I know this was different today. Thank you for listening to my mom's heart for young girls. Please share this podcast with moms in Middle Tennessee so that their daughters can have an amazing experience at Imago Dei Camp. They will be outside learning powerful things about God and not tied to those electronics. My daughter River is so excited. There will be 3 different weeks that are being hosted, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at Michael, M-I-K-E-L, McCoy, M-C-C-O-Y, at prayerclinic.com. Also, share with those older girls that are high school juniors, seniors, and even those college freshmen that are interested in a paid counselor position. If you have interest in sponsoring a camper, that is also an option for a camper that may not have the financial ability to attend but would really benefit from this small, intimate day camp experience with other campers, counselors, and of course God in His great outdoors. Please be praying for us and these campers this summer. The link for registration and my email for questions will be in the show notes. And don't forget, no matter what you're going through, God's got this.